that being the case, would like to call the Sherborn School Committee meeting to order on this June 16th, 2021. It is 5:34. Before I accept nominations for the next chair, I just want to let folks know at home that we've been monitoring the changes being considered to public meetings in the state, but ultimately decided that although we technically could have legally held this meeting remotely tonight, that it would have been too late to notify people of that change when the original agenda said we would be in person. So, and that news broke this morning. So we're going to proceed in person, obviously, and decisions regarding whether we'll return to the Zoom format will have to be determined at future meetings. So with that, I would like to call for nominations for a chair for the Sherborn School Committee.
I would like to nominate Nancy Cordell.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great, we don't have to poll you. Great, so the floor is yours. You need a secretary. So you
Okay.
have to take a nomination for
Okay,
that.
I'd like to nominate Amanda Brown.
And I will second that.
Do-
Any
Okay,
discussion?
that's it. Any discussion? Okay,
Yeah, all in favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, seal the deal.
Okay, all in favor, yes.
No?
Aye, okay.
Do you vote for yourself?
I don't know.
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'm not against it.
You're not against it?
If you don't vote, people might think you
The
do.
good thing is with her as secretary, it will all be very accurate. She's an English teacher.
That's
There will be no grammatical errors.
The grammar will be impacted.
All right, so then we just go down the agenda?
Yep.
We need to do Union 50. Is
No,
that-
no, that's at the next meeting.
That's at the next meeting,
Yep.
okay.
So you
Okay.
need the community comments piece.
Okay, all right. So this is the opportunity for the community to for us to listen to the members of the community. We respectfully request that you make your comments brief, 2 to 3 minutes, and then you move the discussion forward by adding new information. Please try to avoid repeating points that have already been made. It is not a forum for answering questions or engaging in debate. Once the public comment section of the meeting has been concluded, we will move on to other business, and unsolicited comments from the community will no longer be permitted. This is standard operating procedure in school committee meetings across our 3 school districts. We invite everyone to stay and listen the rest of the meeting, but also understand that many of you are unable to do so and may have to leave. We appreciate that you taking the time to participate in this most important process, and we encourage you to reach out to your school committee reps at any time. Do we have any comments? Okay. That concludes community comment section. And now I'd like to turn it over to Barbara Brown for the principal report.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you in 3 dimension. As you can imagine, Pine Hill School is knee-deep in lots of celebrations and festivities with the end of the school year right around the corner. As we say at the elementary level, we have 2 more wake-ups. We look forward to celebrating our 5th graders tomorrow. Yesterday, there was a wonderful dedication to Mary Lucy, who's been teaching 3rd grade she's been teaching at Pine Hill School for 31 years in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And the 3rd grade students and parents dedicated a bird sanctuary in her name on the playground side of our 3rd grade wing. We have a beautiful bird garden on the opposite side, and they're bringing, they've enhanced the habitat with a beautiful bench and lots of potted plants that are, and a water feature that are drawing bird life to that side of the building. I'd like to give a shout out to our CSA and one of our Pine Hill families who last week, when it was warmer than usual, donated, I think, a total of 1,000 popsicles to our school. They were very well received by the students. We are, while school gets out on Monday for our faculty, we have many ambitious faculty members who are already signed up for professional development or summer curriculum work. So the energy to continue to bring renewal and improvement is still alive and well despite the taxing and hard year we've all experienced. Dare I say that Pine Hill professional staff is fully hired for next year. I shared an overview of the newest members that we are welcoming. Amy Beigel to our PE position, Molly Sullivan, preschool teacher, Sarah DeBenedictis will be joining us as a 5th grade teacher, and Sarah Kennedy is a new special educator. As you recall, we increased one position in our budget for next year to expand resources to students. So we're delighted to bring on very talented candidates. 2 of those folks have served as long-term subs with us this year. 2 folks were vetted and hired by our interview teams. We always put candidates in front of our students because that's where the rubber really meets the road, and you really see our students run a good interview. So they were an integral part of that process. Those are the big highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
You had mentioned fully committed from a resource perspective. Have we, sort of in the broader sort of economy, there's a lot of attrition at various sort of companies and other kind of hiring goals that are being sort of not met. Are you finding any issues with that, or do we feel like all the goals, all positions are ready to go for next year?
Our positions are hired, our candidate pools were as plentiful as usual. At the end of last year, we were aware of planned retirements. The only impact with regard to what you're asking are a small handful of folks who probably sped up their decision to retire this year, where they otherwise would have had a little bit longer in their careers due to their personal choice around working during the pandemic. So we had
like increase in unplanned sort of departures other than maybe a couple of retirements?
There were no surprises after the start of this school year.
Okay.
Certainly no big surprises this spring. Last summer, we had a couple folks retire that we hadn't, with shorter notice than usual, once they realized the conditions for opening school and they weighed, their personal choices. But
That was pretty much K-12.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
When coming in, some people said, I can retire, I'm beyond the retirement age, and I don't really feel comfortable.
But there hasn't been a big increase of unplanned here in the spring with people trying to sort of look for roles in other towns or whatever it might be.
No, we actually have very little attrition out of Dover, Sherborn to go to other towns. I like to think the quality of our school culture and climate, and of course, we have very competitive wages. So, very stable, planned for, and executed. That said, somebody could join Cirque du Soleil tomorrow, and I might have an update for you in the fall.
Honestly, it's a great question, Dennis, because, people wonder of how we're impacted in the schools. And what you'll see over time is that at the elementary levels, we have a much deeper pool, typically. You can have lots and lots and lots and lots of candidates, and it makes it really difficult to select the right person. Whereas some of the high school positions, we might not have very many candidates at all, say for a physics or a chemistry position.
Is that because folks are starting out in their career at the elementary and they're kind of...
I think it's because they're really different professions. You know, you're basically a content specialist across the board at the elementary level, but you don't have to do the same deep dive that you do at the secondary level. So the higher up you go, the deeper the dive is expected, so the more specialized you need to be. And some people just basically choose, either because of the age level or the depth that they get into, will choose secondary over elementary. But for whatever reason, elementaries, we usually have no difficulty filling those, whereas as you go into middle school and high school, it gets a little more challenging.
Yeah, the supply demand is different. A year ago, as we were going into this current school year, we were also faced with hiring 5 additional positions across Dover and Sherborn for the remote schoolhouse. So that was a big curveball that we're not facing going into next year.
I think what helps us in all that is that we have very highly qualified educational assistants, and in most all cases, when we need a teacher on an emergency basis, they're there to, and do a great job.
On professional development, that's awesome, that folks are already leaning into that. Is that like tracked, or do you have like programs for everybody, or how do you ensure that folks are getting the right professional development?
And I'm happy to speak to this. Beth can jump in as well. Based on our internal needs assessment, which is a fluid thing that we're always conducting with regard to our strategic plans, our school improvement plans, Beth has organized a tremendously rich professional development for this coming summer around equity, diversity, around project-based learning, around authentic assessment, and many more, many topics. Some of them are course level offerings, some of them are webinar. My role comes in recommending and approving job embedded professional development. So there's a lot of our, specific to Pine Hill, a lot of our teaching teams that will compensate to work this summer for days here and there to bring refinement or renewal to curriculum units of instruction, assessment development. We're certainly our latest curriculum update and revision around social studies, including standards for social justice, some of the new technologies that we're bringing on board next year to provide reinforcement of math and reading. So there's many layers to how teachers grow over the summer, mentoring for our newer educators, lots and lots of layers to that.
Well, and having approved all the PAs, there's a lot of elementary teachers continuing the Teachers College, various training courses to enrich that new
And that's
curriculum.
covered in like our budget and all that stuff.
And one of the benefits is a lot of the places where we send teachers to grow and develop their philosophies, meet with our teaching models, are now offering virtual professional growth opportunities, where before we had to send teachers
To New York.
perhaps to conferences out of state, and there was more of an expense, and it maybe wasn't as conducive to teachers' personal lives too. So we're able to capitalize on a lot more opportunities this summer because of that.
Does that give us an opportunity to cast it to more people with deeper, more experience to somebody, if we're doing one training program for one teacher, maybe we can do 2 or something, like, is that what we're sort of?
I'm not sure we're ever limit ourselves to, so if our teachers need, like for Teachers College, we would come up with a way to fund it if they had to go travel.
Okay.
But this is
Great.
definitely allowing, I think, for people to do that and then add on some other stuff that's maybe more of the, icing on the cake versus the cake.
I think the efficiency comes in that teachers don't have to leave their families. They can log on and still have family time in the evenings or in the mornings, so they're willing to take on more versus, one big trip to New York might have been it for the summer.
Okay.
So,
I hope that continues, because that's been a game changer.
Oh, yeah.
It's been great
yeah,
to
absolutely.
do professional development in your pajamas
Mhm.
at home.
A silver lining from.
True.
Well, thanks so much, Barb, and thank you for everything this year. And I think where we left last year compared to what we're thinking about for September, the mindset of the teachers and the administration, to how is September going to look, because we were not at school. This is a totally different and hopefully continue, like looking at the positive side and not have the dividers, or we don't know that, but not have the dividers, maybe not the masks, I don't know, but thank you, and, thank you for all your efforts and all the teachers' efforts in this, just a year that we, was positive. I mean, it turned out to be a great year, so, and getting the kids back, so much earlier than some of the other towns, it's really,
We're so thankful.
So, I mean, it was
It's
just
a real-
really-
It's really important to tip the hat to
Yeah.
our elementary teachers,
Yeah.
because they did in fact come in the 4 days, all the way back to October
Yeah.
for our K-3s, and I think it was early December for 4, 5.
Yeah.
So that 4 days, that was a lot in comparison to most places in
Yep.
person, and we did it safely, which was most important.
Right.
So a real serious tip of the hat to our teachers from Pine Hill and Chickering. I can't say enough in that regard, and I can tell you, I took the compliments and bullets from area superintendents who were frustrated by the fact that we were able to do it as quickly as we were.
Seems like a lifetime ago.
It does,
Does.
yeah, yeah. It's a compliment to this school system.
thank you. Okay, so we'll move on now to Dawn and the warrant report.
Warrant report, so you have in front of you the warrants that have been processed since your last meeting in May. So as you can see, we've been fairly busy, and we're gearing up now to try to close out the year. So Angie, again, thank you for, I think, can you go into town hall yet, or?
We're getting there. There are some stairs, but you still have to call, and I think this will be the first week you can actually go in.
Again, so thank you for continuing to go and sign all our warrants for us. And then
So,
moving on.
well, can I ask one question on that?
Yeah.
Could that ever be done, I mean, e-signature wise? I mean, scanning the documents in and using DocuSign, I'm just thinking, we've done everything else virtually.
Yeah, well, I
didn't-
would say it's hard to scan in sort of in some of the invoices and
Yeah.
such, and it's actually, I think, probably more convenient just to go
Okay.
and look at them live.
Yeah, okay.
Because invoices come in all shapes and sizes.
I was
Right.
gonna say, some of
Yeah.
these invoices
Yeah.
are a quarter sheet, some are a
Yeah.
half sheet, so
Yeah.
you have to make sure, because sometimes when I'm looking and I'm like, where did it go? And it is like slid down in my lap because it's a quarter sheet, I'm like, well, there it is,
Right.
there's a lot
Right.
of difference.
Right.
Okay,
But I know Dover has actually approved that to be a mechanism, but I think sometimes it's just easier to go in person.
right.
Look, because as you can see, we do warrants by funding source, so there's a lot of little ones that would be more difficult,
Yeah.
I think, to sort of scan, sign,
So- Yeah, so we're storing them paper, not
Mhm.
electronically?
Yeah.
Well, well, okay, well, that's something that we might want to look into in the future, just because it's,
I know,
you
I
know.
think you'll find in
There's
the.
a committee in Sherborn that's looking at a lot of.
That kind of stuff.
That kind of
businesses and bringing them down.
yeah, because that seems, because expenses in corporate America are all little things like this, and you gotta, they're scanned in and someone else is signing them, so, anyway, but, okay, so, just curious.
Yeah. We're still sort of old fashioned, I think, both towns.
Right, well, we did, but I think we jumped light years ahead because of COVID in so many ways in our school system, so.
Definitely,
we
yeah.
really
I was
did.
looking at the warrants in the Dover package, they're not broken out by fund, is there a different way that they do
They
it
are.
versus us?
No, they are.
Maybe it was just.
Yep, I think this particular warrant for you guys, you hit like every fund you possibly could. So, and you do have a few more, than they do.
Funds.
Yeah, you have some different funds that Dover doesn't have.
Okay.
So right there, you already have a couple that are unique to Sherborn. But no, both towns have us actually processed them the same way.
All right, thank you, and you want to continue on to the.
Exactly, so the monthly report, the only new piece of information I have for you for your financials is that since our last meeting, we've received a couple of credits from Accept Collaborative. 2 of those resulted from surplus from fiscal year 20 surplus, and so they can only hold so much. It's sort of similar to the Regions E and D, and so they had to give back some monies to their member districts, and that surplus was returned to you based on your usage of their school program. So part came back in tuition and your usage of transportation. So there's a formula that they did. So Sherborn received $10,000 for tuitions and $11,000 for transportation. Earlier in the year too, and I hadn't highlighted this, they did return to all districts a transportation credit for COVID related savings in fiscal year '20, so that was an additional $11,000. So what we've been able to do then is take that and you're showing a larger increase, and you're out of district by almost 90,000. So that's a great place for Sherborn to be, because sometimes that's not always the case. So, you know, with all the staffing changes that we had, and Dennis, a lot of our staffing savings are from some of these last minute retirements. We are probably returning close to $400,000 back to the town of Sherborn, which is representative of the retirement savings, but also we've had some savings because we were in hybrid, so we didn't incur as many sort of incidental expenses, and luckily, I think I wrote in the report, we were very fortunate. You know, we carry a reserve in our budget for the building repairs, and it's been a very, knock on wood, been a very easy year as far as the building goes. So that money will just be saved back to the town, and we'll continue with our reserve for next year. So it's for emergency repairs that you don't know are gonna happen, so. That's good news on that front, and then I just repeat it just so you can have the information again about all the COVID-related grants that we're gonna have rolling into 22-23.
Is it building-related reserves, and what is earmarked for school, or can that be used back in the town?
No, it's in our budget. It's in our budget.
So
Yep.
if something unforeseen comes up next year,
Oh, yeah, it stays in our, yeah, it's a built-in amount in our budget. Some years we use it all and go over a little bit, and then some years we don't. But you don't want to be in a situation where you have an emergency repair and you have to go ask for an appropriation from the town, so.
There was grant money, however, that was overseen by the town where we did ask the town for it originally, correct?
Oh, for CARES?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, municipal care. Oh, yeah, that's.
That originally went through the town, and we had to request it from them. This is different.
Right, operating, yeah. And then, so I just wanted to give you an update before we sort of break for the summer on enrollment, and I will say, we're pretty on as far as our projections in most grades. Both elementaries are seeing, a little bit higher incoming kindergarten class than the census led us to believe. And so you're looking at a kindergarten incoming class right now of 65. We had, we're running a census of about 57. So there have been some increases. We haven't dived in to see if there's any common process of those extra students, whether they're move-ins or just students not recorded on the census. We did find in Dover there was a significant number of students that weren't recorded on the census, so we were starting not with the best number. We had a census in there, just so you know, like 54. We're at 75 kindergarten
Oh
classes,
my,
75 for
that's
kindergarten
a
right
huge-
now. So that's like one of those things
Yeah.
where, whoa, what happened here?
Sherborn does a great job of harnessing families in
to
the
do that,
census.
yeah. And Dover usually does, but I think COVID.
We had
put
one
them-
family that moved in, because we request, you know, we look at a December 1 census for consistency each year. And it was all families who moved in after, from the Sherborn side of things.
So the only one that's sort of out of our range right now for classes, and it's on the low side, is second grade. We have 70.
Current second?
Incoming second, so second grade. We have 70, our projections were 73 to 78, so that one is a little bit below where we thought we were. All the other ones are falling right into, in the range of what we had projected. So we'll continue to monitor that with Pine Hill and see if we get any more changes during the summer. But we may have a little play because of the one class that's looking a little lower than we thought.
Second grade to third grade is the only grade level that's bumping up against our guideline. The others all have a bit of wiggle room.
Exactly.
All of this only trickier this year because of all the activity in real estate.
Yeah.
It's tricky any year. You're not comparing apples to apples, right? You have families moving out who don't have children, and potentially families moving in with lots of children. But you might have families moving out with a decent-sized family, and they're moving to Wellesley or to Connecticut, and it's just very inexact. But this year in particular, with the movement in real estate, it's just very inexact. And my recommendation obviously to all of you and to Dawn and to Kathy as she comes on board is to watch that this summer. It's inexact, and the problem is you and really, the teachers start to get used to the idea, these are my students, and so if you have to suddenly add a teacher, they have to come out of these other classes. And that's partly why we don't announce who's in the classes at the beginning of the year, because we might have to make adjustments.
And John, should that second to third grade bump up over our cap, is there money to add an EA or?
Yeah,
would you have need if those
but I do
numbers
think
go
that
up?
the second grade's actually below, the second grade right now, where it stands could actually, some of the sections are below guidelines. So if third grade continues to grow and second grade holds steady, there's a swing there we could make.
Okay.
Because right now there's 4 teachers assigned to second grade.
Okay.
But I think, we'll just have to see. I think one thing, and we mentioned in Dover too, is we may know some of the move-ins, but we may not know all the out-migrations yet. So
Mhm.
there still can be shifts both
Yeah.
ways, which is why we always look, our model takes October to October, so that you capture all of that in the right time frame. So I think that, we'll just have to see. I didn't ask about Sherborn real estate market specifically, but I did get some insight into the Dover real estate market, and although it seems like the real estate market is crazy, at the end of the year, the realtors are saying we're not gonna really see that many more housing transactions. It's just been condensed because of the shutdown and COVID, and the houses are staying on. The one change is the amount of time they're on the market. It's a much shorter market time, which makes you think that it's fast and furious, but they were telling me that at the end of the day, when they start looking at their numbers, seems like it's really crazy, but it's not on an annual basis. So.
I get a lot of questions, especially through the Sherborn Safety Committee reps, about enrollment bump ups due to new construction with some of the housing developments, and we've not experienced that yet.
Well, we did notice, some enrollment increases with the development of the housing on Route 16 heading into Holliston. Not huge numbers, not enough to concern us at
No,
all.
I think it was the bus route that sort of.
We did
brought
have to
that
add a
our
stop
attention.
there,
Yeah.
so that had an impact. And there is definitely, talk of development on Coolidge Street. Clearly, that's in the hands of the developers now, and you can see in the local papers that they're discussing with Framingham and Natick ideas around water and waste for that development. So that's eventually going to happen. But even in that case, I think that they were projecting perhaps at most 100 students across the system. So 100 students across the system is less than 10 per grade. That's not going to deep six you numbers-wise. It's not going to deep six you in terms of space, because we had 100 more students, maybe even 150 at Pine Hill at one time. So we're still okay, but it's something that has to be watched, no question.
And we do that every summer. I
Yep.
mean, you've definitely had years at Pine Hill Roads, we've got them traipsing in all August. I think I was over there one
It can
time, so,
happen.
well, something we keep our radar tuned to all summer long.
Does that analysis just K through 5, or does that include pre-K and programs for that?
We don't do pre-K because pre-K, we regulate pre-K. Like, we only have a pre-K to educate our students on special ed plans. And so then we control what the general ed students who join that group. So we do look at that as far as, we've actually swayed varied how many pre-K programs we had in both Dover and Sherborn. But I think once we reset our mission as to why we had a pre-K, we're comfortable right now with just having one pre-K in each elementary school.
So just for some background on that, Dennis, when we did the start times changes, some people were concerned that we hadn't, interviewed parents of preschool students. And the problem is that we don't really know who they are, because preschools are everywhere, right? They're in Wellesley, they're in South Natick, they're in Dover, Medfield, they're all over the place. So that's why we rely so much on the census for our kindergartners. But we do know who our higher needs students are, because we're required to provide services from age 3 to 5. So that we refer to as preschool. It's actually our integrated preschool. And so that's how that works.
Right, any questions? Any more questions on enrollment? No? Okay. So now we will move on to the approval of the 2021 Family Handbook.
And can I make an adjustment to that? That should read 21, 22.
Oh, yeah, 21.
For both of
yes.
those. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
That got by us.
So just, is this
This-
a vote, just a vote?
This was our second read, right?
Right, this is the second read, so essentially you guys have had a chance to look at it, to share any questions or concerns with the chair and bring it back to us. And there have been no changes, correct, Barb, since the first read?
That's correct, with one thing I just thought of, and I'm sorry. Having attended a DS aid meeting since our last school committee meeting, I, of course, want to make sure that the equity statement that was adopted and approved is in our handbook. And I didn't think of that until the DS aid meeting when we discussed it.
So you can entertain a
Make a
motion
motion.
to,
One other thing, David Jesus, I think my name was in there, but it probably hasn't been added from the results of the.
the election of last night.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
so,
So,
And-
doing it twice, maybe.
Well, I put a generic update member
Yeah.
names,
Yeah, that's a constant.
knowing.
But the numbers are actually listed in there, so can we update it?
Oh, yeah, so,
You could
but
have-
you're putting.
But I did
further
account for
update.
that.
Yeah.
Knowing that that information would be available.
so the one thing that you would need to, the motion would need to include is the change of the
Equity statement.
equities, the addition of the equities.
Okay, so, but I make that in one big motion.
Well, you ask
right?
for someone to make a motion.
Okay, okay.
I would like to move to approve the 2021-2022 Family Handbook for Pine Hill with the addition to add in the equity statement into said handbook.
So moved?
I get that.
Oh, sorry, so, I'm sorry, can I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Sorry.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Good.
okay.
Okay, so the next item up
We
is,
need to change the dates.
yes, the approval of the 2021-22 school improvement plan.
This is the second read as well, so I don't believe there have been any changes to that, have there, Dr. Brown?
That's correct.
Right,
No
so,
changes.
so as long as everyone was okay with it, you didn't hear any concerns, you could entertain a motion to accept the, or approve the school improvement plan.
Can I have a motion to approve the 2021 and 2022 school improvement plan?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good.
Good job.
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
Did, next item up, consent agenda for the May 11th, 2021 minutes. Does anyone have any changes? Nope. Okay. And do I make a motion for that? Can we- Okay. Just trying to get the language right. Can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda to approve, okay, approve the consent agenda for May 11th, 2021?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Angie, do you want to help out with
Yeah,
this
so-
number 9,
Yeah,
please?
if you don't mind, I'll add some insight.
Okay.
So this is always a strange meeting because we're kind of transitioning people. So Megan Page rolled off. She completed her term, which, Megan, we miss you already. And I have a little parting thank you from our school committee from the central office, so thank you. But we have subcommittee assignments that is listed in your packet. So if you'll go through those, and I circulated those earlier, just to say, look at them, and actually, Dennis, if you want to bring out what you had seen for us, because Dennis and I share one committee, and we're going to perhaps overlap on another committee that wasn't on there before, the sustainability, because that's new. Dennis had a good idea. It's about combining, kind of having the same people on sustainability as well as facilities, because we're trying to work those together for things like air conditioning and things like green energy, all those things. And so Dennis had asked, I'm thinking of David because he's on your post, and Dennis had asked, would we want to combine those, which would have the same people, which is a great idea. And Dennis also said we need to form a committee because there's a lot of things that we're trying to look for, because when COVID hit, we had the question of, when we went back into school, what was the air quality like? And so Pine Hill, as you know, we don't have AC. So we're thinking about these things in the future, because as our population increases in the school, what do we do? So these are things that Dennis is right. Dennis has the background of a consultant, so he understands that we need to kind of look at this as a broad range. So he and I are gonna do those committees. So everybody else needs to look at committees, because some of the things that I was on, now Nancy will be on. But if you could get to Nancy exactly what it is, if you're staying, if you're going on certain committees, if there's a committee that you're like, this wasn't my forte, but I would really think do better here, that would be great. So we can get them to Cheryl in central office, so she can list those out. So that's all it is. But things like that we do for our next meeting. Dennis and I would like to have an agenda item about having this committee for sustainability and facilities all together.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
think they should be separate line items on
right,
the roster here, but I would suggest maintaining the membership.
Right.
Right.
I think it needs to be acknowledged as both, because there will be sustainability stuff that is not facilities, but.
so what we're saying is Dennis and I'll do both of those. Separately, but together.
Just to connect those dots, I was gonna mention it, and I will in the next meeting, but the Sustainability Task Force is actually, is gonna be led by Dawn and one of our students, Angela Lynn. She's a rising sophomore. I think they're the ideal people to put this in the hands of. It's been me. There should be representatives from each school committee on that. It's really important that they be on that. So logically, it would probably be one of you two. Probably not both of you, but maybe both of you if you really feel strongly about it. The key is that Dawn, as the person who oversees operations, now being part of that, just really makes a lot of sense. That's a unique task force. It has a lot of community input and heavy student input.
Okay.
We're trying to teach the kids how to be leaders in this kind of realm, so it's a little unorthodox, but it works.
It would be
I
nice
think
to
that's
have a
great.
trickle-down effect in the elementary school. I know,
That came up today. We
Right.
want to
Yeah.
include younger kids as well.
I know that when my kids were in an elementary school, not here, but elsewhere, they had this watching thing, and they were watchers, and if, you had to turn off lights in rooms, and my husband's continually upset because he goes through our house, he's like, where are the watchers? Because there are lights on, so
I
I
like
can do
it.
that in
Write
Pine
that
Hill as
down,
well,
Dawn.
watchers. You're turning off and not using extra energy. So that would be great, maybe, that would be something we could try to implement in our elementary.
We have, everything's on sensors.
There we go, see? And I know you all try to limit plastic, with the reusable bottles, I know that was always a big push when my kids were there. Any reusables?
So Nancy, is there any, just email you, how we?
Yep, you can just email, yes. And I have a note here to make sure it's on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay.
So when you meet with the superintendent in August in preparation for your September meeting, that should be on your list of things to
Okay.
talk to her
Yep,
about.
Great.
So that it's in the packet and the members know that come that meeting, they need to have
They're-
given that information so that you can include that in the packet. You don't have to hash it out in the meeting. You can
Right.
just
Right,
have the thing all filled out so it gets in the packet.
okay. Okay,
And then everything else, you can just tell them they can read at their leisure.
Okay,
It's good summer reading.
Yeah.
so for the minutes for May 4th, March 4th, and May 17th?
Mhm.
Just for
It's in your
just for
packet, just for-
information
Right.
only.
I just wanted to, I know we already voted on this, but the meeting of May 11th, I'm listed as present, but I was not present that day. So I just noticed that.
Okay.
That can be
Okay.
changed.
Yeah, that
I
can
just wanted to
be
make sure we fixed that. I remember I wasn't present because I was really
Do we have to
excited
make another
about the
motion?
Readers Workshop curriculum
I
update.
don't-
No,
I
we'll
don't
The
And then I
think so.
can-
change, no, okay,
We'll just adjust, we just
Okay.
need to tell Cheryl to
okay,
adjust
I can do it.
minutes
I'll
to,
take care of that.
okay.
to reflect that
She
amendment.
usually asks us every morning what
Very
gets approved, so we
good.
can
Yeah.
look at it to adjust them. Amanda.
Okay.
Amanda was not present. And that's it. Okay.
All right, great.
You can ask for a motion to
Okay,
adjourn.
okay. I just mention that David Kessies is a new member of the Sherborn School Committee. And then the other big news that everyone knows is the road got approved at Penn Hill, which is just,
That is a big
that's
deal.
huge, that's
Thank
huge. I
you.
just started the meeting.
Well, we were talking about how we do things old fashioned. What was that, 20 years?
Yeah.
That's, yeah, that's.
It takes a while for us to
Yeah.
get moving on some of these
Right.
things, so that was a big deal. It's
Okay.
great. They'll work on that this summer. It should be ready, hopefully.
Yeah, Technically, though, they're taking ownership on Saturday,
Wow.
so we'll see how quickly it all plays out. So just so you know, we've moved all
That's-
programming from Pine Hill to Chickering this summer. So
Okay.
the pre-K and tutoring and the goals program are all being housed at Chickering, because you
You
really
you have all
won't
the
have
moving equipment now.
accessibility to the
Yeah.
building.
And Dr. Brown.
And Dr. Brown, and
And I have a
Oh, right.
satellite office, so I can be near the children, of course.
But you'll have air conditioning.
There's.
That's, yeah, that's right.
exactly, that's what we'll do about it.
Okay, I'd like to call a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Great
Okay.
job.
Thank you. That's